Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tradesmen Talks, where we talk to home service business owners that are looking to grow their business or even get started in that industry. And Wilson and I both have experience, and we would love to offer you some guidance and some clarity. And today we want to talk about the adjustments that could be made when you're building or growing a business in a different market. And those of us that are listening to the news or listening to different forms of media, we might be hearing that a recession is upon us. And certainly we've all experienced or have observed different shifts in our markets, whether that's being a home service provider or a homeowner. We've seen the cost of things change a little bit. And so with a changing market conditions, you may want to think about adjusting your business. And so we'll go into that topic a little bit today and hopefully give you guys some tips on how to approach that. But before we jump into that, Wilson, how's your week?
Weeks. Chair almost broke. Other than my chair trying to kill me, man, we've had a really, really good week. The shop, we've got a new guy that we're training. It's been absolutely amazing. So I feel really, really good about that. We've had our own struggles with finding people that want to stay around, which is, part of the process. There's a learning curve that goes with that, and then also there's just a function of, you just have to do it. You just have to do it. You're never going to find the perfect person every single time. It doesn't work that way. But it's been really solid. We're happy with it. Marketing costs are still super down right now, which is awesome. And so, we've also we're making a little bit of progress with some of those larger deals. So I think we've got, looks like we're going to get our first test with one of them in September. So that's really exciting. And if that goes
nice. Are you referring to the apartment buildings?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we're, the goal is to blow them out of the water. I'm going to be returning back to Texas. My goal is to be there by first week in September, last week in August. So we're going to be hands on the ground and kind of helping orchestrate and managing some of that stuff, which will be nice. It's been nice working remote, but it's also nice to be in there and be able to touch and feel and make things happen. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see how having some boots on the ground over there, you yourself even, you'll be able to contribute in a different way and move some of these pieces together, start making some moves over there. I know you have an awesome team over there now, and so adding another set of hands with the experience that you have in kind of business management, you'll be able to put some things in place over there for the
take a little bit of weight off Logan's shoulders as he's building out some of the resources. But we've got potentially another person coming with me that I'm trying to recruit to come work with us there, which nice. I think is a great lesson for anybody building their business. You should be recruiting everywhere you go, right? Everywhere.
Yeah, definitely should keep that system going, because it always takes time to hire people, and it certainly takes time to hire really good people. And so having your business in a position where you're able to keep that system going, and then keeping your customer acquisition system dialed in enough to where when you find that good person, you can bring them into your business without too much friction.
Yep.
But my week was good as well. I was in Boston last week, and part of this week actually, and so got to explore the city. I was there for a business conference, got to meet some really, really good people, got to learn a lot of things around just a different level of business. And so that was really cool, and learning things that I could apply to our cabinet shops, our partnerships with cabinet startup, and then even some things we're doing with contractors and BA. And so got to meet a lot of people that are doing some big things. And so that'll be exciting to learn from them in the future and keep applying things. The real estate projects are going smoothly. You got one of the houses countertops put on, the roof is scheduled for Tuesday. And so we're kind of in the final stretch with one of the bigger projects. So that will be nice to get that one checked off the list and move on to the next one. But progress is always good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny with like housing projects, like with this one we've been flipping. One of the things I noticed is it looks really horrible until it finally starts to come together, and then it really starts to come
Yeah.
together very quickly. And when you first start to see it coming together, that feeling is so nice.
Yeah, because it takes a little imagination to envision everything before it's there. And so in the midst of all the projects, the house looks like a wreck. But as some of the big things get done, like the kitchen, the bathrooms, you can really start to picture it a lot easier. So it's exciting. Cabinet shops are doing good. We finished our biggest job on record last week, I believe, or the week before, just recently, and
50,000?
we too have. What's that?
It was 50,000.
Yeah, it was right over 50 grand for the house. It was the mix of cabinet refinishing and refacing, and so that one was done. It took a little bit because the homeowner was having a lot of other things done at the same time, so we had to kind of coordinate with the other contractors, and so it required a little bit more of a spaced out timeline than we had hoped, but we got it done, and it certainly felt good, especially for Felix. He was the team managing it, or he was the manager of that team, and so that was a big one to check off. And they've been bringing in some jobs. This week, I think we brought in 8 jobs so far.
They're not bad for
And
one week.
so, yeah, that not bad at all. And there were some pretty good ones, over 10 grand on some of those projects. And we actually paused a chunk of our marketing during that week.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good feeling with that. So hopefully that becomes a trend.
Right.
But
Well, it's really fun
wasn't
pausing
expecting
paid
it.
marketing, right? Especially if it keeps going. It's like all that money stays in your pocket, but the leads keep coming.
Right. We want it, and I've mentioned this on other calls, making adjustments to our Facebook ads and things like that. And so I decided to take a couple weeks pause from Facebook and just rely on some of our other sources. And as we've been rolling out some of the organic stuff, really wanted to track what was coming in from that.
Yep.
And so not having to pay for Facebook ads for a couple weeks, that's improving our bottom line just with the savings of the expense, and then bringing in jobs during that week certainly adds to it even more.
Yeah, it's a big win. And some of the organic strategies, again, it's like, man, when you put in the time on the front end, it pays off. It's just the consistency, and it helps once your team's big enough to outsource some of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's awesome that it's working that well for you. It's crazy because I want to say that the templates that we're using for those organic, it's like we're selling this for like $27 right now, and it makes us 20 grand a month. And I try and tell people that, but I don't think they take it seriously because they don't see the bank account. It's like stuff works, just have to do it.
But the ones that do take it seriously, they are getting the results. So it seems to be a matter of how serious the person may be around improving their business. Because some of this stuff doesn't require a lot of effort. It's a lot of times just the decision that's in the way. And so that's good. I know you guys are seeing great results with the Google My Business stuff as well. And we had our office person starting to post multiple times a day on Facebook, Instagram, and Google My Business. And we're just kind of growing that organic base. And so it's been going good, but we don't have a ton of time for today's call, so I want to go into a little bit about the subject at hand, and see what we could do to provide some value with that. Really talking about
There,
actually,
there are
what's that?
two things that I think we could talk about today that'd be really interesting. One of the biggest, and this is, I know something a lot of guys are asking about. I've been getting a lot of questions about this, and that's the recession.
Yeah.
Now, I tell everybody this from the very beginning. I wear one of the tallest tin hats in the room. Like, I'm the conspiracy guy. I get that. I've been screaming we're going to have recession for the last 3 years. The fact that it has taken this long has been surprising to me. But this is the second quarter in a row where we've had a lower GDP. And you can't find a single time in history where we've had 2 quarters of lower GDP in a row that hasn't been followed by a recession since 1947.
Right.
Now, it's not the only thing, but the White House, I believe, did just change the definition of recession so that we're not in a
Yeah.
recession. So for anybody listening, we may not be in a recession, but for all intents and purposes, these are some things that we think you should plan for because the recession's coming. Um, Stephen, I don't know how you, if you're feeling the same way. Like for us in Austin, we're not particularly worried about the recession. I think Austin's market is going to get hit harder than most because it boomed the hardest. But we're not particularly worried about a recession because one of the things that I've noticed is, in a bull market, everybody's a genius. And there are a lot of businesses right now, there's so much free money, there's so much extra money floating around that are doing well because it's hard not to do well. And as things start to tighten up, I think a lot of those businesses are going to struggle. But we have a pretty tight grasp on our numbers. And I think that we're going to do really well and kind of weather out the storm as those guys struggle. And then when they go out of business, we're going to pick up all their business.
Yeah, there's certainly something to be said about the business owner that approaches their market with not only an understanding of their customer, but also an understanding of the financial model within their business. Believe it or not every business owner really has a grasp on the numbers. And a lot of these smaller home service professionals, they're not having regular meetings either with themselves or their team around the financials of their business. They're not really looking ahead enough
Right.
to be able to proactively make the adjustments. And they very well may wait till there's a problem before they start fixing it. And us as business owners, it becomes a valuable skill to be able to forecast and to be able to start putting action around adjustments before you need them. And that's partly why we advocate keeping that hiring machine going, is because it does take time, and you don't want to wait till you need someone to start hiring or to start that process. You don't want to have to go through posting, looking for applications, looking for interviews, attending the interviews, all after you realize you need someone, because then you're in a level of desperation. And that concept applies to the business as a whole. You don't want to have to react out of desperation with any part of your business. And so if we can forecast and make adjustments according to this, call it likelihood of changing market conditions or even potential of changing market conditions, how can we prepare ourselves for the worst and still hope for the best sort of mentality? And when it comes to our trade, there's some approaches that we can have, but even others who, let's say, are plumbing or electrical, you might be in an industry where you're serving people out of necessity, or you're serving people out of luxury, or even in between. You want to try to position yourself into necessity.
Yes.
And you can still deal with luxuries while serving people out of necessity. So what I mean by that is, people who want to remodel their kitchen, they may need a necessity to adjust their budget.
Right.
And so if they can't afford, or if they can no longer afford to spend 40 grand on all new custom cabinets, maybe they will become likely to consider cabinet refacing. That drops that $30,000 price down to $15,000.
Right.
And they can still improve or upgrade that kitchen without having to spend as much. And so you can approach it that way. And then obviously, if you're in a home service that can be in the category of home maintenance, you're going to be in a good position, because even in a down economy, people still have to take care of their stuff. Because it can cost them more money not to. And so if you got a big hole in your roof, if you don't get it fixed, the problem is just going to get more and more expensive. And same thing with plumbing or electrical. And so if you're in a market that can be described as a luxury, I would first recommend, how can you position yourself to serve those in need, and try to adjust your marketing to have messaging around being a more affordable alternative.
Right.
Well,
one thing,
and so that would be the first thing I'd look, is how to change your positioning in the market. And then, as we've talked about before, really dialing in your financials. So we've talked about before, decreasing your expenses and increasing your revenue. We always recommend to focus on decreasing your expenses first because that's more within the realm of control. There's a lot of business owners who don't even realize how much money they're spending on subscriptions. It's very likely that they're spending, $50 a month here, $100 a month there on stuff that they don't even know.
Yeah.
And so really auditing your subscriptions and then seeing what you could do operationally to decrease your expenses is kind of where I would look to next.
Given the environment, if we're talking about an actual recession and you have the option of looking at, okay, can I decrease my expense or increase my revenue? I think as real decreasing your expenses is going to be more important, because depending on the market you're serving, if it's not a necessity, then you may have less influence and less control than you previously did in the bull market about how you're going to go out and get those customers. And so I would start planning for that now. One thing you said that I thought was really, really sharp just there is you're like, most people aren't dealing with problems until they come up. But it's like conceptually, if you start digging a well when you're thirsty, you're probably going to die of thirst.
That's a great way to put it.
And for a lot of people, that seems to be the go-to solution, but it's not like there aren't warning signs, right? Like we've seen the inflation. Nobody in our industry is not paying more for materials right now than they were a year ago. In a lot of cases, significantly more. Like we see some of the writing on the wall. It's knowing that that's there. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's plan for that. One, find yourself necessity. Two, start working on decreasing those expenses and be ruthless about it. Honestly, like be really ruthless about it. There are a lot of times where you have things that, and we do this as well. We pay for several things that are nice to have.
Yeah.
Don't need them.
Well, that's the thing too, that buying behavior. People fortunately are still people. Even if the marketing conditions change, we still have habitual patterns, we still have impulses, we still have emotions that influence our behavior as well. And so looking at the overall market can be very helpful, because one thing we have to understand is it's a very complicated market that we're going into. It's not just having the label of a recession. It's not just having the label of inflation. It's not just having the label of supply chain interruptions. It's all three. And some would argue there's even more conditions to consider. And so when you look at in terms of inflation, prices of things are going up, but also incomes are going up. And so what that means is people still are going to have an income stream, but what they're going to be buying might change. And when we look at some of the big ticket items that are getting more expensive in the market, one thing that I think of is real estate itself. People are becoming less able to buy a house, and certainly less able to buy the house that they want. So what that means is people aren't going to be buying as many houses. We literally have the Federal Reserve trying to make it hard to buy houses so that pricing can slow down and so that inventory can go up. But what that means is for a period of time, people are going to be preferring to stay in their house or improving the condition of their existing house so that they can become more attractive in the market. Yep. And so that they may not even want to move anymore. And so that can certainly help stimulate the remodeling economy. If people can't move as easy, they're going to elect to stay. And if people's incomes aren't going down, they're going to have the money to spend. And so that $10,000 or $20,000 that they had for a down payment, they're no longer going to spend it on buying a house because that house is no longer available. To buy that same house, they're going to need 40 grand.
Right.
And because they don't have 40 grand, they're still going to spend the 20 because they've spent it in their mind. They just might spend it on the house that they're in and not so much on buying another one.
They did an assessment, and it was the National Association of Remodelers. I think I can pull up the exact study, but I was actually just looking at this the other day. In the last recession, which really was rough for most people, from about 2008 to about 2012 is when it started to turn back around, right? So dead in the center of that, towards the beginning of 2011, the remodelers actually had their best quarter. which is
Yeah.
kind of a unique thing. And a lot of people don't realize this. Like if you're in a necessity or you're in remodeling for exactly the reasons Steven just talked about, uh, it's like if somebody wants a new kitchen, it's like, man, if only there was a way that they could have a new kitchen for way less than what they were going to spend. If only there
Right.
was a way they could have that feeling of a new house without having to buy a new house. And if you can provide that to people, you can actually do really well in down economies. And one thing worth noting, a lot of the most famous companies in the world started during down economies.
Right. There's always going to be opportunities if you look for them, and even the ones buying houses still, they're likely to have to buy a house that's less renovated. It's less valuable because they can't afford as much as before. So they'll buy a cheaper house, but then they will update it to
Yeah.
make it how they like. And so, I don't think we're in too much of a change until you start seeing people make a lot less money. Right now, we're still seeing people get hired. And some of the big tech companies, we're not seeing as much of that, but that's a little bit less relevant to the working class.
Yeah,
But
I think the
but
problems in tech will actually probably be great for some of the rest of us. For those of us working in the trades, we're not going to be as affected by that. Tech showing crazy money with ridiculous valuations and crazy price to earnings ratios that are allowing them to basically pull money from the market and drive up prices of other things. When that's no longer an issue, those of us that have cash flow based businesses will probably be doing much better than valuation based businesses.
yeah, absolutely. People don't realize how unique it is to run a business off of its own cash flow when
Right?
you compare what you hear about on TV or in the news. Most of these companies, it took them a very long time to make profit. They had to make millions and millions, if not billions of dollars before they started producing profit. And so these small businesses that run off of their own cash flow, they're uniquely positioned. And so you see a lot more investment gravitating towards the profitable companies.
Yep.
And therefore, the technology companies that are not profitable are getting crushed. Um, and so are a lot of other companies as well, just because of overall uncertainty and people wanting to, harbor some of their resources. But I think home services are going to be safe. I would just recommend you stay observant of the market and you understand the benefit of adjusting things proactively, making the adjustments before you need to, and use this as an opportunity to maximize the opportunity. Because if you look at the market a little bit differently, you might discover some shifts you can make that will increase your revenue, decrease your expenses, and make you a lot stronger of a business.
Yep.
And if you can do that effectively, you can bring in enough resources to actually grow through this quote unquote recession as opposed to, moving backwards.
Yep. And then when
And
the next
so,
wave comes, you're going to be ready to ride it.
yeah, if you can do things effectively to where you have an ability to kind of accumulate resources when things become apparently opportunistic for you, you'll be able to jump on some of these things. For example, if you're a business and you want to grow, well, the guy next door who may not have been a little bit proactive, his business may be suffering and you might be able to capitalize on that opportunity.
Amen. Yeah. Actually, we're hoping to do that some.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're in a home service business and you're looking to sell, hit
Reach,
us up.
reach out. Support at cabinstart.com.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions at all, regardless of the trade you're in, if you're looking for some clarity or suggestions, feel free to shoot over your questions at support@cabinetstartup.com. We'd be happy to help you out any way we can. And with that, we'll be happy to talk to you guys same time, same place next week.
Bye,
Have a great
everybody.
one.